It was supposed to be a joyful night, a community Christmas party filled with laughter, food, and festive cheer. But by the end of the evening, a 5-year-old girl would vanish without a trace, triggering a massive search and unraveling a mystery far darker than anyone expected. Melissa Brannon was born on April 12, 1984, in Texas. After her parents' divorce, her mother, Tammy, moved with her to the quiet town of Lorton, Virginia. It was the kind of place families sought out: peaceful, suburban, and friendly. Tammy found work as an accountant and rented an apartment in a modest complex on the town's edge. The community was tight-knit, with frequent events for residents, especially the children. Melissa, only 5 at the time, thrived there. She spent her days playing with neighborhood kids and eagerly joined the Friday and holiday gatherings that brought everyone together. On December 3rd, the complex hosted a Christmas celebration in a separate building with multiple halls. Around 200 residents attended, enjoying dinner and festive activities. Melissa, like many of the children, ran about joyfully while adults mingled. As the evening wore on, around 10 p.m., Tammy told Melissa it was time to go. She asked her daughter to fetch their jackets while she said goodbye to friends. Melissa also asked if she could take some chips home. Tammy said yes, but minutes later, Melissa hadn't come back. Tammy began to search, first casually, then with growing urgency. She checked each hall, the hallway, asked guests, but no one had seen her daughter. Panic set in. Neighbors joined the search, combing through the building and outside. Still, no sign of Melissa. Tammy called the police. Officers arrived quickly and began an immediate search of the area. Word spread fast. Soon, over 300 volunteers were involved, scouring every corner of the complex and beyond. Melissa Brannon had simply vanished into thin air, and the investigation that followed would uncover unsettling truths that shocked the entire community. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us and helps us grow. A huge thank you to everyone who's been watching. At first, police hoped Melissa had simply wandered off, maybe stepped outside in the middle of the excitement and gotten lost. But as the hours passed, that theory started to unravel. It was cold and dark that night, not a time or place where a 5-year-old could easily go far unnoticed. And Melissa knew the complex well. Even at her age, she wouldn't have strayed too far from familiar ground. Complicating the search was the dense forest directly behind the apartment complex. There was a real chance she could have ended up in those woods. Officers and volunteers combed the building where the party had taken place, but came up with nothing. Melissa's jacket was gone, suggesting she had left at some point, but no other clue pointed to where, how, or with whom. One detail did catch the investigators' attention: an open window in the building's boiler room. Maybe she'd climbed out, but that seemed unlikely. Small, yes, but not impossible. Still, it raised more questions than it answered. With no physical trace of Melissa, the investigation turned to the people. Police began interviewing everyone at the party. No one recalled seeing Melissa leave or noticing anyone with her. Tammy, her mother, reported nothing unusual that evening. She'd never had problems with anyone in the complex. No grudges, no strange encounters. Nothing. Naturally, police looked into Melissa's father. Parental abduction is a common lead in such disappearances, but that too went nowhere. He was confirmed to be in Texas, nowhere near Virginia at the time. Running out of options, investigators widened the search. Officers pushed into the woods behind the complex, while others checked every building nearby. Hundreds of residents stayed out late, helping however they could. but it was all in vain. Melissa had simply vanished. By early morning, with no progress, police made the call to send volunteers home. Then they pivoted to a new strategy, knocking on every door in the complex. Nearly 400 residents lived there, and that night, police spoke to every one of them. No one had seen anything. No one had answers. So investigators asked a different question. Had anyone noticed anything strange lately? Anything unusual, even if it didn't seem connected? That's when something finally surfaced. Their first real lead. As detectives pressed residents for anything unusual, several women came forward with unsettling stories. Caleb Hughes, a 23-year-old maintenance worker at the complex, had made them uncomfortable that night. He flirted aggressively, made crude remarks, and didn't seem to care that most of them were with their husbands. Parents had also noticed something off. Hughes seemed overly interested in the children, watching them more closely than anyone felt was normal. Alarmed, investigators circled back to Tammy. Had she noticed anything strange about Hughes? She had. During the party, he approached her multiple times to chat, always steering the conversation toward Melissa. At one point, he even offered to take Melissa to the restroom so Tammy wouldn't have to leave the event. She declined. That interaction stood out. So police set out to speak with Hughes directly, but he was nowhere to be found. Officers drove to his home just a few miles away. His wife answered the door. Hughes, she said, hadn't come home that night. They left, but returned a few hours later. This time he was there. He told them he'd arrived around 12:30 a.m., but the math didn't add up. Hughes had left the complex around 10 p.m. It should have taken him 10 minutes to get home. Instead, he was gone for nearly 2.5 hours. When asked about the delay, he claimed he took a longer route and stopped at a store to buy beer. Police weren't buying it. For starters, a beer run doesn't take nearly 3 hours, and state law prohibited alcohol sales after midnight. Hughes couldn't produce a receipt either. The inconsistencies kept piling up. Officers then asked him to turn over the clothes he'd worn that day. That's when things got even stranger. Hughes admitted he had already thrown them in the washing machine the moment he got home. They pressed further. Eventually, he handed over the clothes. To their surprise, his shoes had also been washed, and not just cleaned, but tampered with. Parts of the soles had been cut off. Mixed in with the clothing were a large knife sheath and a leather belt. When police asked where the knife was, Hughes simply said he couldn't remember. With Hughes's suspicious behavior piling up, investigators grew increasingly convinced he was involved in Melissa's disappearance. They sent his clothes to the lab for analysis. Forensic technicians sprayed luminol on his shoes, and the results were telling. Traces of blood lit up under the chemical. But it was too late. The washing had destroyed most of the evidence. There wasn't enough material left for a proper DNA test. Police brought Hughes in for questioning. Over hours of interrogation, he remained calm and stuck to his story, despite the lies and contradictions. He even claimed not to know Melissa at all, said he'd never seen her, didn't know what she looked like, had no idea what had happened to her. Detectives knew he was lying. Multiple witnesses, including Tammy, had seen him interacting with Melissa that night. They confronted him directly. "We know you're lying." Hughes didn't flinch. His answer was cold. "Prove it." But they couldn't. Not yet. Without physical evidence or a body, they had no choice but to release him the following day. Still, the investigation intensified. Officers expanded the search effort, desperate for a breakthrough. That same morning, detectives decided to speak to Hughes's wife, this time without him present. What she shared changed everything. Their marriage, she admitted, was rocky. She didn't trust him. In fact, before Hughes left for the Christmas party, she had checked the mileage on his car. When he returned, she checked it again. He had driven exactly 12 miles. This detail was critical. First, it didn't line up with his story of a quick store run that somehow took nearly 3 hours. Second, it gave investigators something they hadn't had before: a radius. By subtracting the distance from his home to the apartment complex, police could estimate the area he may have traveled to, and possibly where he had taken Melissa. The result: a 25-square-mile search zone. It was a massive area. To cover it, authorities called in reinforcements: military personnel, criminal analysis units, helicopters, planes, and divers to scan nearby lakes and rivers. Hundreds of volunteers, nearly 400 in total, joined the search. Melissa's father, who had flown in from Texas the moment he heard the news, was among them. Flyers with Melissa's photo and details flooded the region. Thousands were printed and distributed as the desperate search for answers continued. Just 5 months before Melissa vanished, another young girl had gone missing in the same town. Her body was later discovered, but the case remained unsolved. The killer had never been identified. That chilling detail wasn't lost on investigators. As the massive search for Melissa unfolded, a team of forensic experts was dispatched to the apartment complex. Their focus: the only potential lead found early in the case, the open boiler room window. Outside that window, they uncovered something that could change everything. Faint boot prints, adult-sized, traced a path from the building to the parking lot. Crucially, there were no small footprints near them. That suggested Melissa hadn't walked away. She had likely been carried straight to a waiting car. Police had already searched Caleb Hughes's vehicle once, but found nothing. Now, with the FBI officially involved, they stepped up surveillance. Still lacking the evidence to arrest him, agents placed Hughes under 24-hour watch. A judge also ordered him to provide a DNA sample in case anything new surfaced. As they dug into his past, what they found was disturbing. Hughes had a long list of prior arrests stretching back to his teenage years. He had a documented history of alcohol and drug abuse, and worse, he had been suspected multiple times of inappropriate conduct with minors. One discovery stood out. A few years earlier, Hughes had received a suspended sentence for car theft in a neighboring county. But records showed he had violated the terms of his probation. Because of that, a judge revoked the suspended sentence and converted it into active jail time. It wasn't justice for Melissa, but it gave police a legal way to put Hughes behind bars. Meanwhile, the search pressed on, but progress was slow. The landscape itself worked against them. Thick forest blanketed much of the area, and a wide river cut through the region, making the search even more grueling. Then, 2 months after Melissa's disappearance, something completely unexpected happened. Tammy received a phone call. The man on the line claimed to have her daughter. He demanded a ransom, $775,000. Tammy alerted authorities the moment the ransom call came in. FBI agents advised her to cooperate, gather the money, and prepare to meet the caller. A trap was quickly set. Dozens of agents surrounded the drop site and waited. Soon, 2 men approached Tammy. The FBI moved in and made the arrest. But the men had no connection to Melissa. They were university students who'd seen the news and thought they could exploit the situation for easy money. Instead, they got prison time. One was sentenced to 7.5 years, the other nearly 4. Once again, the case hit a wall. Hughes remained the prime suspect, but without physical evidence or a body, there was nothing to hold him on. In a final push, investigators turned back to Hughes's car, this time with advanced forensic tools provided by the FBI. There was just one problem. The car didn't belong to him. It was registered to his wife. They needed her consent. Thankfully, she agreed without hesitation. The forensics team went to work. They applied luminol, and it told them what they feared. Traces of blood appeared on the driver's seat, the pedals, floor mat, steering wheel, even the windshield. But once again, the blood had been cleaned too thoroughly. No usable DNA. Still determined, the experts searched the vehicle for hair fibers and trace evidence, but the interior was a mess. Dirt, trash, and thick layers of dog hair made processing the scene nearly impossible. One forensic technician took a different approach. Using tape, he manually lifted debris from every surface in the vehicle. Everything collected was sent to the FBI crime lab for analysis. At first, it was mostly dog hair, expected since the couple owned 2 large dogs. But then, something stood out. Mixed among the samples was a different type of hair, black rabbit fur. That caught the technician's attention. Further checks confirmed it matched the material of a coat owned by Melissa's mother, Tammy. To confirm their suspicion, forensic experts requested Tammy's coat. Lab tests verified it. The black rabbit fur found in Hughes's car was an exact match. Investigators theorized the fur could have easily transferred to Melissa's clothes when she retrieved their jackets, or from everyday contact. Tammy wore the coat often during winter, and Melissa was always close by. Then came another finding. Among the debris was a single light-colored hair. Analysts compared it to strands from Melissa's hairbrush. It was a match. But the most important discovery was still ahead. The forensic team found numerous tiny red and blue fibers embedded in the car's passenger seat. Melissa had been wearing a red and blue sweater with a matching skirt the night she vanished. Investigators now needed to find that exact outfit to confirm the link. They turned to Melissa's grandmother, who had purchased the clothes, but she couldn't remember the store. Police scoured local retailers, hoping to find a match. Nothing. Meanwhile, one forensic expert couldn't shake the puzzle. How could they prove those fibers came from Melissa's outfit? He brought the question home. While discussing it with his wife, she asked him to describe the clothes. After listening, she had a hunch. They sounded like something from JCPenney, a store she often used to shop for their kids. She happened to have a stash of old JCPenney catalogs. Determined to help, she began flipping through them. Then, in a Christmas edition from the previous year, she found it. Page 11. The outfit was identical to the one Melissa had worn the night she disappeared. This was the break investigators needed. The red and blue fibers from Hughes's car matched the clothing in the catalog, tightening the case against him. The FBI immediately contacted JCPenney, but there was a snag. The outfit had completely sold out. Still, the company offered a solution. Because the outfit was only sold through their catalog, and only 7,000 units had been made, they offered to provide a list of all buyers, giving police a chance to track down one of the sets. Investigators began combing through the JCPenney customer list. It was a painstaking process, but persistence paid off. They eventually found a man in Kentucky who had purchased the same outfit for his granddaughter, only to realize he'd ordered the wrong size. The clothing had sat untouched in its original packaging for an entire year. It was a perfect find. The man agreed to send the outfit to the FBI. Forensic experts got to work immediately. This particular model had a distinctive trait. The manufacturer had used a custom, patented shade of dark blue, coded 887, never used in any other clothing line. The FBI compared fibers from the Kentucky outfit to those pulled from Hughes's car. They were a perfect match. That meant someone wearing this exact outfit, one of only 7,000 ever sold, had been inside Hughes's vehicle. It didn't definitively prove Melissa had been there, but the odds of another child wearing the same rare outfit riding in his car were astronomically low. To eliminate any lingering doubt, the lead forensic expert went one step further. He collected over 100 red and blue fibers from different clothing items and ran 7,983 comparative tests. The results were clear. All other samples showed measurable differences, except two: the fiber set from the packaged outfit and those recovered from Hughes's passenger seat. The match was absolute. There was no longer any reasonable chance the fibers came from anyone else. It had to be the same outfit Melissa was wearing the night she disappeared. Even so, detectives knew the challenge ahead. Fiber evidence, no matter how compelling, was still circumstantial. Even when added to the blood traces in Hughes's car, the cut soles of his shoes, and his suspicious behavior, it wasn't a smoking gun. But after nearly 2 months of investigation, they were out of options. They made their move. Caleb Hughes was formally charged with the abduction of Melissa Brannon. Prosecutors argued that Melissa was likely dead, based on the blood evidence found on Hughes's shoes and inside his car. The fibers from her red and blue outfit, discovered on the passenger seat, suggested she may have removed her jacket, possibly under duress. It pointed toward a darker motive. According to the prosecution's theory, Hughes approached Melissa when she went to retrieve the coats at her mother's request. He lured her into the boiler room, perhaps under the guise of helping, then carried her out through the open window and into his car. From there, he drove to an unknown location, killed her, likely using a knife, disposed of the weapon, and hid her body. This, they said, explained his 2.5-hour disappearance the night of the party. He then returned home and immediately tried to cover his tracks, washing his clothes and shoes, even cutting the blood-stained soles of his sneakers. In one final attempt to break the case open, detectives offered Hughes a polygraph test. They hoped that, when confronted with all the mounting evidence, he might finally confess. State law required either the discovery of the victim's body or confirmation of the murder location to pursue a murder charge. Without that, they were limited to charging him with kidnapping, which carried a far lighter sentence. The polygraph results were clear. Hughes showed deception on nearly every critical question. Still, he denied everything. With no confession, no body, and no murder weapon, police moved forward with the only charge they could: kidnapping. The trial began more than 2 years after Melissa's disappearance. Hughes continued to maintain his innocence. His defense attorney tried to discredit the fiber and blood evidence as purely circumstantial, but the prosecution's narrative, carefully constructed and deeply unsettling, left a stronger impression. After just 8 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict: guilty. Caleb Hughes was sentenced to the maximum, 50 years behind bars. Caleb Hughes has remained behind bars since his conviction, continuing to deny any involvement in Melissa Brannon's disappearance. Over the years, police launched multiple efforts to locate her remains, but none were successful. 4 years after the trial, a potential lead surfaced. An energy company worker discovered fragments of red fabric in a lake within the original search area. Divers were deployed, but once again, the search turned up nothing. 8 years after Melissa vanished, her mother remarried and helped raise 4 stepchildren with her new husband. Though she took his last name legally, she continued using her previous surname in public, just in case Melissa was still alive and searching for her. As for Hughes, his story didn't end with the conviction. On August 2nd, 2019, he was released early for good behavior after serving just over half of his sentence. He was 53 at the time. He has now been a free man for several years. Melissa Brannon is still listed as missing. Her body has never been found, and without proof of death, no murder charge was ever filed. But after all this time, few hold out hope that she's still alive. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave your theories below. What do you think happened to Melissa Brannon? A playlist is coming up now with more disturbing stories. Click it, if you dare.